so much for giving me this opportunity to speak about this great Vaishnava, Narottama Das Thakur. He's very exalted, very sweet personality, and personally he attracts my heart, he attracts my consciousness because he has this sweetness and intensity of devotional service attached to him, to his personality and existence. And personally, I learned a lot, and I got so many different realizations, so many questions that I had got answered as I was hearing and hearing his pastimes and activities. It was really purifying for my heart. So I, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for giving me this opportunity and bringing this these sweet pastimes into my consciousness. And I request and I hope that everyone also feels the same. They also feel very enlightened, purified, and ecstatic after hearing these, hearing the activities of Srila Narottama Das Thakur. Usually, disappearance day is considered more important than appearance day, because it's on the disappearance day that we realize what a great soul, or what activities, or what legacy that Vaishnava has left behind. So we honor and relish the disappearance day much more than appearance day. And so it is indeed a very great opportunity for all of us to dive deep into the pastimes of Srila Narottama Das Thakur. So we begin with invocation prayers. Om Gyan Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namoste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhye vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Thank you so much. So Narottama Das Thakur was actually predicted, singled out by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, even before he was born. Like every other devotee in Lord Chaitanya's pastime, Narottama Das Thakur is very, very special. And he's quite unique position he has, because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu predicted his advent, that such a saint would come. So one day, Lord Chaitanya with his devotees were doing Sankirtan and were passing by Keturi and near river Padmavati. And suddenly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu becomes very ecstatic, and he falls on the ground. He apparently losing his consciousness. And at the time he was crying out, Naro, Naro, Narottam, Narottam. And so everybody was looking around, like, who's Narottam here? We don't know. And they asked Lord Chaitanya, who is Narottam? He's like, he's yet to come. He's gonna be born again. And as he was fainting, Nityananda Prabhu asked, he bent down and he asked Lord Chaitanya, inquiring what's going on. And Lord Chaitanya said, Nityananda, what will happen to our movement when we are gone, when we wrap up our pastimes? And Nityananda said, you know it better, you know everything. And he said, who will carry on the legacy? Nityanand Prabhu said, you know the best. And he said, Narottam. He's like, where is Narottam? We don't know who is Narottam. And then he said, he's about to be born. He's yet to be born. He's not yet born. And so then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I want to leave my love for him. And Nityananda was puzzled. He was like, how can you leave love for someone who is not yet born? And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, come follow me. And then everybody followed Lord Chaitanya, and they approached river Padmavati. Lord Chaitanya entered the waters of Padmavati, and at that time, waters rose in the river very high. There was great turbulence. And then the personality personified Padmavati came to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he told that a great soul, Narottam, will be born and he will enter the waters of Padmavati in the future. And I'm leaving this love for him, and he's supposed to get it. And you're supposed to give him. So Padmavati was puzzled. He was like, she was like, how can I recognize who is Narottam? And Chaitanya said, well, just as today the waters rose, similarly, when Narottam will enter your water, the waters will rise and you will know that personality is Narottam. At that time, you offer this love to him. Now it's very mystical to understand what exactly Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left and how Padmavati river was carrying it in the womb of the riverbed and how it was given to Narottam. It's very mystical, but that's what is documented in the scriptures, and this is what happened. And all the devotees who were watching over they were so enamored, they were puzzled, and slowly, everywhere between the devotees, far and wide, this word spread that Lord Chaitanya had left his love for a devotee called Narottam, who is yet to appear in this world. And then he appeared, which is like a miracle in Khetari, as Induduna Maharaj entitled this, Miracle in Khetari. And he was born to Krishnananda and Narayani. And Krishnananda was a king of Khetari. He was very, very rich, very opulent. And Narottam was born after many years of praying that they wanted a child. So after, it was very late in their years, in their life, that Narottam appeared. So he was the darling son of Krishnananda and Narayani, very darling. And they had great hopes he's going to become a great prince. So as Narottam turned 6 months old, there they had to do Annaprashan ceremony, or the first grain eating ceremony for Narottam. And so the baby Narottam was laid in the cradle, and Mother Narayani got little sweet rice as first grain for Narottam. And as she was trying to put the spoon near the mouth of Narottam turned away. But people thought maybe, children can do that. They can be restless and they can turn in different directions. So then Mother Nari went on the other side, and she again brought the spoon very close to the mouth, and Narottam turned the opposite side this time. And so she kept doing like this. And then a sadhu was sitting in the assembly of the guests, and he said, well, I think you should go and offer this to Lord Narayan, and then maybe he will have. And so quickly the parents ran, because everybody was waiting for the ceremony, and here baby Narottam is not eating it. So it's the highlight of the ceremony, and Narottam is not eating. So they quickly ran into the house and went to the altar, offered the sweet rice, then brought again out, and they tried to feed Narottam. This time Narottam took a big gulp of spoon into his mouth because it was offered to the Lord. So from a very, very young age, he was depicting his proclivities towards, being a devotee. So as Narottam grew, his parents would take him for pravachans or lectures of great saints. They would visit in the evening. Everybody in the evening in those days would go for hearing Krishna Katha, or talk about God and his activities. And so as child, Narottam would go with his parents, and he would sit there, and he would listened with rapt attention, very rapt attention for his young age. And his parents were very, very enchanted by that. They thought he's going to be a good boy, he's going to be a good prince in the future. They were so happy. But his attention towards hearing those pastimes was very, very intense. And one day happened to be Krishna Das, an associate of Lord Chaitanya, as a speaker of the Katha. And he noticed that spark in Narottam, and he started to talk about Lord Chaitanya, his pastimes, his activities. He started to talk about Rup and Sanatan, and Narottam was completely drawn to those pastimes. He was like, wow, he was living to hear those pastimes. And it was not just childish obsession or casual attraction, but it was fierce and intense. He was living to hear those pastimes. And his father happened to notice this. He was like, hey, Narottam, it's very nice that you're hearing these sadhus, listening to these sadhus, but we have our own responsibilities. We cannot become like those sadhus. So you should not be like too attracted to such things. You have to be a prince in the future. And Narottam, he was a young boy. In his mind, he thought, I think I can, and I think I will. So that was his thought when his father said these words. His father didn't know. I think it was also mentioned that some sages told that Narottam should not go to the river Padmavati, and he was restrained by his parents to not go to river Padmavati. But once when he was sleeping, and in a dream, Nityanand Prabhu came, and Nityanand Prabhu said, Narottam, wake up and go to river Padmavati. Lord Chaitanya has left a very special gift of love for you. Go and retrieve it from river Padmavati. And Narottam ran to river Padmavati in the middle of the night, and he entered the waters, and the waters rose and became turbulent. And river Padmavati personified came out, and she offered that love to Narottam. And Narottam, after receiving it, became like a madman, intoxicated with love of Godhead, love for Lord Chaitanya. And it was a very mystical experience. He became mad, completely mad. It was an extraordinary experience for him, even though his parents were devotees. Nobody could understand or comprehend the intensity of the love that he was experiencing. And then finally, one fine day, he actually ran away from his home. And he was a young teenager at that time. And all the guards and ministers, everybody was sent from the palace to look for Narottam. And so he had to take a route through the forest, like almost like Raghunath Das Goswami did. And he took a route in the forest, and he was pampered. He was the only child born after so many years to very rich parents. So he was completely pampered, and it was so difficult for him, the challenges that he had to take. There was no maps. He didn't know where to go, where to turn left, right. But he had to go from Kheturi is like in present-day Bangladesh. So from that end of the country to the exact opposite end of the country, which is Vrindavan, he had to run. And it was very, very difficult for him, very, very difficult for him. And there were times when he actually gave up. Will I ever see Vrindavan? So many times he actually broke down and he lost hope, and then again picked himself up and went. So one time when he was very close to Vrindavan, almost very close to Vrindavan, but he became so disappointed, dejected, that will I ever reach Vrindavan? And he fainted out of tiredness, out of exhaustion, and out of hopelessness. He fainted. And at that time, a very young boy, village boy, came with a pot of milk, and Narottam was lying on the ground. This boy woke up. Hey, please drink this milk. And Narottam saw with his blurred vision, some boy and milk pot, but he was so tired to even wake up and drink milk, so he just again fainted. Then in the vision, Rup and Sanatan came. Rup and Sanatan told, Narottam, wake up, take that pot of milk. You're so fortunate, Lord Chaitanya has come himself to give you a pot of milk. Why don't you drink that milk? You're very close to Vrindavan. We're always by your side. Just drink that milk, be nourished, and continue your journey. And then Narottam woke out of that vision, and he drank the milk that was left for him, and he felt nourished, and he started walking towards Vrindavan. So at times in spiritual life, we may also feel like, will I ever reach Vrindavan? Will I ever see Krishna? Will I ever make any progress? We may be crawling in the desert of our anartha nivritti, and we may become hopeless, dejected. But even great souls like Narottam felt that. And if we continue on like Narottam did, we will definitely reach our destination, which is attaining Krishna's lotus feet. And so finally he reached Mathura. And in Mathura, he got to know Rupa and Sanatan left the world not very long ago. So he was very, very dejected again. He cried and cried and cried that Rupa and Sanatan left. And then he found strength in a Brahmana in Mathura. And the Brahmana said, you carry on. There are so many devotees in Vrindavan. They're all waiting for you. So you go. It's not so far now anymore. And then as he was approaching Vrindavan, he was feeling very small. He was like, maybe I don't deserve it. Will anyone welcome me? I'm so unqualified. I'm so unqualified. How can I do this? What will I do in Vrindavan? Is it my real destination? He was feeling very confused and very small. And that's the kind of right mood to approach the greatness. When you approach greatness, you're supposed to feel very small. Do I deserve it? Do I not? It's maybe it's not meant for me. Unlike situations where we just walk up to our spiritual master because I'm supposed to be seen. So that's not the right attitude. Just as we are supposed to approach through senior devotees and senior Vaishnavas, and we approach Krishna or we approach our spiritual master through them rather than just presenting ourselves directly to them. That's not the right way. And when we approach them, we are supposed to feel very meek and humble rather than, oh, I do so much, or I have so-and-so position. So Narottama, as he entered Vrindavan, everyone welcomed him very, very joyfully because everyone knew that a devotee called Narottama would come someday, not Lord Chaitanya had predicted. So everyone welcomed him. And as soon as he saw Lokanath Goswami, his heart was completely enchanted by the personality of Lokanath Goswami, and he thought, this personality is my spiritual master. And as we know, Lokanath Goswami had taken a vow not to accept disciples. He didn't want to be famous. He didn't want to be seen. He didn't want to be in the limelight. So he had taken a vow, no disciples. And he was also one of the first Goswamis to actually go to Vrindavan. He was sent by Lord Chaitanya himself. From his own association, he said, you go to Vrindavan, leave my association, go to Vrindavan and uncover the place. And Lokanath Goswami would actually walk with his Radha Vinod deities in the basket, and Radha Vinod deities would direct, oh, here was Radha Kund, here was Ter Kadam. They would point out, okay, these were the places. So he was carrying in the basket in the front of his abdomen, and they would point out different places of pastimes to Lokanath Goswami. And he was uncovering, and because he was the first Goswami, it was very difficult for him because it was total forest. No one was there, no one, absolutely no one. So it was a very difficult task. It was also very difficult because he had to leave Lord Chaitanya's association. So at times, Lord Chaitanya, many times actually, Lord Chaitanya did this to many devotees, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Rup Sanatan. He empowered them. He also sent them away from his physical association to do tasks that were difficult or challenging, but for the benefit of the greater world and greater good of the future generations to come. Also, Lord Chaitanya didn't do himself a lot of work, in the sense he didn't write books, or he didn't train a lot of devotees, but he empowered others to do that. He empowered others. So he was unfolding his mission, his pastimes. He was predicting that each and every devotee had important contribution in his pastimes, and we're all part of it. We're all part of it. We're all part of Lord Chaitanya's family and his mission, and so we have to do our part. And at times, our seniors and our guru would ask us to do something which we may not want to do. A lot of time, Prabhupada asked his disciples to do things which probably they didn't want to do, or it was very difficult. He sent Tamal Krishna Maharaj to China. He asked his disciples in the train ride in India, you just get down at this place and start a temple. And they just had to get down from the train. No plan, nothing, no acquaintances, nothing. They just got down. He asked Mandakini Mataji, go marry a devotee in Russia. She didn't even know. She was French and he's Russian. And just to preach Krishna consciousness, so many difficult tasks were given to so many different devotees. And we have to ask this question to ourselves, are we ready for such tasks? So Lokanath Goswami was one of the first Goswamis to come uncover the place. And Narottama Das Thakur was drawn to this personality. And by his service attitude, by his humility of cleaning the stool of his spiritual master in the morning, he melted the heart of the spiritual master. And that's how Lokanath Goswami accepted him as his disciple, as his only disciple, in the history. And we sing this song every day, or we are supposed to sing this song every day in the morning, Guru Charana Padma, Guru Puja, prayer. And Lokanath and Narottama Das Thakur is a Lokanath Lokira Jivana. He's glorifying his spiritual master in that prayer. So we are connecting with Narottama Das Thakur's emotions to that prayer every day, or we are supposed to do that. So he has very great contribution in our lives as well. And Narottama Das Thakur then was entrusted by Lokanath Goswami into the hands of Srila Jiva Goswami to train for further training. And we see Narottama Das Thakur was a very advanced devotee from his very childhood, but he was asked to be trained by Srila Jiva Goswami, asked by his spiritual master. He didn't train. So Srila Jiva Goswami became his spiritual shiksha guru. And it's interesting that Srila Jiva Goswami was training. And so we are supposed to be trained by someone. We're supposed to be trained by a senior devotee in our Krishna consciousness, how to approach deities, how to offer, how to carry ourselves in Krishna consciousness. All that training, the mood has to come of our parampara. If that mood is not there, then it contaminates the future generations also. Then eventually everything will become diluted over a period of time. So training is important to keep the legacy going on in the future as it is. If training is not there and I do whatever I feel like and other person does whatever he or she feels like, then it gets diluted over a period of time. So training is very important. So he was trained, and Srila Jiva Goswami opened a school. I think it was Rupa Vidyapeeth, I think it was called. So Jiva Goswami opened that school, and Narottama Das Thakur eventually became best friends forever with Shyamananda and Srinivasa Acharya. And I think their Vrindavan Parikrama is documented in Bhakti Ratnakar, of how they visited different places and everything, the glories of different places. And they were like friends forever, and they nourished each other. They were there in thicks and thin. And then one fine day, Srila Jiva Goswami invited everyone from all over Mathura, Vrindavan, all the nearby places. All the devotees were invited for a very big event. And he said, we are writing so many voluminous books here. Somebody should go and distribute these books. to the people in Bengal, because they're craving and hankering for these literatures. So I decide that Shyamananda, Srinivas, and Narottam should carry uh, these books to Bengal. And they were thrilled. They were thrilled by that prospect, because they had mixed feelings, because they were very sad that they have to leave Vrindavan now. And they were also very thrilled that they have such a humongous task on their shoulders to take these books. And it's a great journey of what happens in the forest. They have to traverse through the forests to go to Bengal. There were no roads constructed by the government, and they lost the literature. And then there's a story of finding it back. And when they reached Bengal, they could share that literature with everyone there. But it was also the beginning of book distribution. Now we are distributing so many books, but they were pioneers in book distribution. They started it. And when they started off, nobody ever thought that this is going to be something that we'll be doing, or we'll see a great impact in the society later on in our lives. Like how Srila Prabhupada distributed so many books, and we are still distributing so many books. So sometimes our services, we may think maybe small or big, or we may think that will they ever impact the society? Will they ever impact the society? Will they ever be useful? We may have those doubts, but they are. And sometimes we realize it years and years later, generations later. So we just came in contact with a girl and lady, and she was telling she wants to read Bhagavad Gita, and we were asking her that how she wants to read Bhagavad Gita. And she said, I picked up Bhagavad Gita at USF programs 15 to 20 years back. So it was incredible. Somebody did the service somewhere else, and now we are reaping the benefits of it. 15 to 20 years is a long time, and she was just carrying that book with herself, desiring that someday she would read. So sometimes we may not have idea of what our services could do for the society, but sometimes it comes years later, or sometimes it may come after we have left this world also. So we never know, but nothing goes in vain in Krishna consciousness. So as Narottam was reached the other side of the country from Vrindavan, he was traveling from Navadvip, Ekachakra. He visited all the places, Puri, pastime spaces of Lord Chaitanya that he'd never gone before. So, and then he realized that actually some people had become very dejected, very, very dejected after Lord Chaitanya's disappearance pastime. And while Lord Chaitanya departed, they had become hopeless. Their faith was shaken. They were lost, bewildered. And so he wanted to do something for them. And he also visited his place where he was born, Kheturi. And that place was now being ruled by his cousin, because Narottama was supposed to be the prince, but because he was not there anymore, his cousin took the responsibility, and he was ruling Kheturi. And he saw that he wanted to preach in Kheturi, but he didn't understand how. How should I do that? And so he started writing songs, and we now have so many songs. He became a poet. We have innumerable songs and literature left by Narottama Das Thakur, and he encapsulated the philosophy. He captured the moments from the spiritual world. He put his humility in those songs. He was expressing his humility, that I've taken poison knowingly. He's writing in Hari Hari Bifale. That knowingly I've taken this poison. But that humility is actually not ordinary humility. In ordinary, one thing is saying the stereotype dialogues, oh, I'm the servant of the servant. But to be a servant of the servant is a very big thing, very big thing. We have to sacrifice at every step. Then we are called servant of the servant. So one is like stereotype dialogue. Then one is some humility, genuine humility. And this is like special, unique humility that Narottama Das Thakur describes, which is actually an attribute of prema. When prema is there, this dayini humility is also there, it is called. So this humility is not an expression of low self-esteem, but is an expression of great, intense love, and they're inseparable, they go together. And then he has described his longing and greed, vipralamba, which is the hallmark of our sampradaya. He's writing that when will I get tears in my eyes? Gauranga bolite habe. When will I body shiver? When will I have tears of love in my eyes? So he's expressing that. He's also expressing love for Vaishnavas and spiritual master, because he depicted by his life how to have reverence for the spiritual master, and how to have loving relationships with his friends like Shamananda, Srinivas. So he expressed that love and hankering for Vaishnavas and spiritual master. And he also encapsulated, or sometimes described the vivid description of the spiritual world, that there Vrindavana Ramya Sthana, how Vrindavan is such a beautiful, charming place, and there's 1,000-petal lotus there, and then in the 1,000 there are 8 primary lotuses representing the Sakhis, and there's a jeweled throne there. Shri Radha, Radhika and Shyam are sitting together, having joking, loving hasya parihasya sambhashane. They're having loving, joking conversations. They're laughing. May that joyful moment always stays in my heart and in my consciousness. So he's praying like that. So he became an incredible songwriter to inspire the residents of Khituri. And Srila Prabhupada quoted, he never really spoke about Narottama Das Thakur in great depth, but he quoted over 2,000 times in his lectures, in all the lectures that he has ever given. He has quoted Narottama Das Thakur's songs. So it was very, very important. And then he was thinking about these devotees who were dejected. So he thought, okay, let me have a great Gaur Purnima festival. So he became the inaugurator of Great Gaur Purnima festival, and which was almost approximately 40 years after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's departure. So as a leader, sometimes you have to be creative, innovative, dynamic in our activities so that we can spread the compassion and mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So Narottama Das Thakur was devising these plans to spread the glories and love of Godhead. So he invited all the devotees far and wide. Great organization was required. And he got great help from his cousin who was ruling Kheturi at that time. Great monetary help, and Kheturi was offered as the venue. So great help was provided by his cousin, and his friends came, Shamananda, Srinivas, and another friend that he picked up later on was Ramachandra Kaviraj. Everyone was there for Gaur Purnima festival. And then he did a very special kirtan, very, very special kirtan. There's a particular name for that. Very special kirtan he did. It was a very new style of kirtan, very intense, very pure. And as he started singing, it became so intense at one point that Panch Tattva and all the associates of Lord Chaitanya appeared there, and everyone could see. Everyone became so joyful. They were dancing in ecstasy to see Lord Chaitanya again, because they were so dejected after his departure. And after that, Narottam became the king of Kirtan. He was known. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, what is real chanting? He says, real chanting is not lip deep, but heart deep. And it should be heart deep, so heart deep that it reaches to the land of Krishna. And when it reaches the land of Krishna, Krishna should become compelled to come down. And when he comes down, he enters the heart, and the holy name comes from the lip and tongue. That means Krishna is vibrating the lip and tongue. Then that is actually the real chanting of the holy names. That's how the kirtan should be, the real kirtan. It should not be limited to our instrumental or technical level, that how many instruments do I know, or how many, or just, it's not just the act of playing, it's just not the act of singing, but it's so deep that everybody should be able to feel Krishna. It should be able to transform the hearts of the listener, and or force Krishna to appear in the midst of the devotees. And that is the intensity of chanting that we should have, not just in Kirtan, but also in Japa. And then Narottam stayed in Khetri for a very, very long time. And as he was growing old, his intensity, hankering, his depth of love for Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was increasing greatly day by day, and everybody could feel it. Everybody could feel it. And because after this special Kirtan, Narottam Das Thakur had become very famous, so many people would come to Khetri. Khetri became very famous. So everybody would go there to meet the saints. So Narottam said to his friend Ramachandra Kaviraj that let's make a bhajan stali outside of Kheturi. And they started staying outside of Kheturi for some time. And they used to have their intimate association. They used to talk Krishna Katha, and they were spending their time, but still people would find them out and they would come and see. One day, a letter arrived from Srinivasa Acharya for Ramachandra. He said, Ramachandra, please come to Vrindavan, accompany me to Vrindavan. And Ramachandra knew that it's because of my association that somehow Narottam Das Thakur is surviving. But after I leave, he may depart anytime, because his intensity of separation is increasing day by day. It's so much palpable. So he showed that letter to Narottam Das Thakur. Narottam Das Thakur smilingly said, you go, no worries, because Narottam Das Thakur was also very much ready to leave the world. So as soon as Ramchandra left that place, Narottam Das Thakur was greatly increasing the feelings of separation, and he was appearing like that he could depart. So one of the prominent disciples of Narottam Das Thakur came forward, called Ganga Narayan Chakravarti. And he said to Narottam Das Thakur one day, let's go to my hometown, there's river Ganga, we'll take part there. And Narottam Das Thakur became ecstatic. He said, yes, let's go. And then they went to Ganga Narayan's home and went to the river. Everybody entered the river. Narottam Das Thakur also entered the river. And when he came out of the river, he lied down near the bank of the river, and he never woke up. And so Ganga Narayan, everyone went close to Narottam Das Thakur's deha, the physical body. And Ganga Narayan started to cry, and he started begging, please don't leave now, please don't leave now, please don't leave now. And Narottam Das Thakur suddenly came up, okay, I will not leave. And so he was similar to, as Sitala Mataji was saying, she's the authority, Narottam Das Thakur. She's written the book Life and Teachings, Narottam Das Thakur. So Mother Sitala was explaining that it was similar to Prabhupada's Leela. Prabhupada also at times gave hope to his disciples that he's not leaving. And so Narottam Das Thakur also did something similar. And they came back. After spending some time at Ganga Narayan's home, they came back to Kheturi. And again, feelings of separation were intensifying. The love was intensifying. And one day, Narottam Das Thakur himself said to Ganga Narayan, let's go to Ganga. And Ganga Narayan was a little bit scared. He was thinking that something big is impending, and but he had to follow the instruction of the spiritual master. He had no choice, so he took Narottam Das Thakur to Jirganj, close at his home, and they entered the river. Like before, everyone, disciples and Ganga Narayan and Narottam Das Thakur. And Narottama Das Thakur asked his disciples, okay, bathe me with the water of Ganges. And they all took little pots and they started bathing Narottama Das Thakur. And as they were bathing, to their very, very surprise and bewilderment, Narottama Das Thakur's body started melting away in the water. It was a very unique way of departure, because we hear yogis leaving their bodies maybe uniquely or at their will, but this was something never seen or heard of. His body was melting into the Ganges. And so they took the remains from the river of the liquid, which is called it was like milky substance, so it is called Dudh Samadhi, and it is still present. And there's a Pushpa Samadhi in Vrindavan next to Lokanath Goswami's Samadhi in the Gokulananda. That is a spiritual master, Lokanath Goswami and Narottama Das Thakur. It's a very sacred place, very powerful place. And that's how he disappeared on this very day in Jirganj. And we talk of these beautiful pastimes, beautiful personalities, because we are trying to do our part. We are trying to make our endeavors, but our endeavors are not sufficient to attract the love of Krishna. We need mercy. And so we are trying to attract mercy by our devotional service, by our endeavors. And we get mercy easily by pleasing these great souls, by pleasing the Vaishnavas. And we attract the mercy, and then we can easily go back to Godhead or attract Krishna's attention towards ourselves. So we'll stop here. It's a very condensed version of his story. His pastimes are very, very deep. There are very, very many lessons embedded. But I will stop here, and if anybody has any corrections or additions,
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for this wonderful Victorian pastime of Narottama Das Thakur with so many practical lessons, humility, and some nice examples. Okay, so I think Kashish Mataji wants to say something, so we have a few minutes to take some comments or reflections.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much. It was such a wonderful class. The mercy of gurus, spiritual masters, you explained so well. Two things which I felt connected was that I'm a fallen soul, and the fear of getting rejected is always there. Because I'm full of sins, I always feel like that I don't know whether Krishna is hearing, or even Krishna is very far, even the Goswamis are hearing, or even is going somewhere or no. But whenever I hear someone saying that, that Krishna is very merciful and he's really, really inspiring us to do it, we are chosen for that. And today your class was really connected to that point, and I felt so blessed by hearing it. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Kashish Mataji. So for reflections, anyone else has any comments or any questions or additions to make before we wrap up today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Mataji, Manjulali Mataji. Very nice class, Mataji. I'm always like a big fan of you, Mataji. Please pray for me so that I can just follow your footsteps, Mataji. You are so nicely explained. So pastime of Narottama Das Thakur. It's really amazing, Mataji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
thank you, Mataji, for your kind words. Please don't follow my footsteps. Please follow Narottama Das Thakur's footsteps or other great acharyas.
Thank you so much. So we'll wrap up now and pray to Sri Narottama Thakur on this glorious day of his disappearance. When this shloka comes in Bhagavad Gita, Janma Karma Chame Divyam Evam Lohi Tattvata. So Krishna Katha does not just mean the activities in the pastime of the Supreme Lord. It certainly also includes the activities in the pastime of the great devotees like Sri Narottama Thakur and many others. So when we read here, take inspiration, try to follow in the footsteps of such great souls. Certainly, one does not have to take birth again in this cycle of birth and death. So this is a month of Kartik going on, the month of mercy, the month of Radharani, the month of so many festivals, the month of the appearance, disappearance of so many great acharyas. So it's like loaded, not just loaded, like overloaded with spiritual potency. And to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, it's really, really important because where did Narottama Das Thakur, Shamanand Pandit, and Srinivasacharya, they were studying under Jiva Goswami, who was not their direct Diksha Guru, who was their Shiksha Guru, but Diksha Guru, Shiksha Guru are non-different if they are at that level. They were all studying under Jiva Goswami at Sri Radha Damodar Temple. So, and that's a very place where Prabhupada stayed before he came to the United States. And Prabhupada, when we go to Radha Damodar Temple, in the present, there's a big poster there which says Prabhupada, in Prabhupada's quotations, Radha Damodar Temple is the spiritual focal point or center, spiritual center of the universe. So we can imagine that how these great acharyas they were studying there, Bhagavatam, Charsandarbhas, Bhakti Ratnakar, and many, many other great literatures. So let's pray at the lotus feet of Sri Narottama Das Thakur at Sri Srila Damodar, so we can get more sincere, serious in our Krishna consciousness and continue to follow the footsteps of great souls, continue to humbly serve as Narottama Das Thakur was doing, in the mood of the servant to the servant, and make our life perfect. Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki jai, Shri Shri Damodar ki jai, Shri Narottama Das Thakur Mahashay ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Kartik Damodar Mas ki jai, Dhai
Jai.
Gaur Premanande, Hari
Hare
Bol.
Sri
Krishna
Hare
Sangha
Krishna,
devotees, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much,
Shakrataptarupyascha,
Guruji. Thank you so much.
Kripa Sindhupyaiva cha Patitanam
Sitanam
Pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Namo
Vaishnavi.
Namo.
Namo.
Thank you. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.